everyone. Welcome to this episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on this episode, I have a very special guest who I'm honored to have on the show, Michel Fortin. Michel is the Director of Search Marketing at SEO Plus, an agency headquartered in our nation's capital of Ottawa, Canada. Michel and I are both from Canada. His role is to help accelerate online results and create productive marketing strategies that translate into real-world ROI for the agency's clients. Since 1992, Michel has been instrumental in generating over $500 million in sales for his clients. His pioneering work was responsible for setting many records, such as generating the first ever $1 million in online sales in under 24 hours. He's an author, speaker, and consultant with over 30 years of experience in digital marketing and marketing, period. Michel, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. That was an awesome introduction. Thank you.
Yeah,
I have to live up to the hype now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know you've transitioned from copywriting into more embracing digital marketing as a whole. And I know that you've talked about that in other places. There's other places. I mean, I would love to talk about that, but I also know there's a piece of content on Coffeeville where people can learn that whole story of how you did that, as well as on your site. But yeah, you're in my opinion, you're a legend. So not to build you up too much, but writing the first $1 million sales letter on that got online, that was pretty neat. And it was like, what, 175 pages, you said?
It was the first one was 75 pages. And then when we did the relaunch, which was just a month later, we were like putting it back out in the market. It was, we added testimonials and we added more copy and we added a few extra videos. Yeah. So I think it came up to about 135 pages when printed.
Yeah, that's amazing. So now you've transitioned into digital marketing. I know that one of your passions is there's many different things you and I share as we talked off camera, but SEO, like search engine optimization, I've always been fascinated with search engine optimization as a marketing channel, but how it fits with marketing. But I noticed on your blog you had how to develop an effective SEO content strategy. So I'd like to kind of pick your brain about that. And like when you're taking on a client or looking at a website or whatever or a venture that someone maybe gets you interested in. What are the first steps you take in developing an SEO content strategy for our campaign?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to emphasize something that
absolutely
SEO has always been part of what I've done. I think that SEO is not about search engine optimization. Really, it's the search engine is there to serve the user, and we write copy for the user to try to get them to take an action. Well, we are doing the same thing on a website, on a search engine, where we try to get them to come to our website. So it's essentially the same thing, but it's a bit more focused on giving the user the tools, the value, the information that they're looking for to fix problems, to answer questions. Yeah. And so SEO is very much like copy. I look at it as just a different industry for the same thing. But to answer your question, so I tend to look at, first of all, whenever I do these types of copywriting, not copywriting, but SEO projects, I always look at a doctor's analogy, because it's important to understand that you never want to prescribe before you diagnose. So I tend to always want to diagnose first. And when a client comes to me and I said, look, I will gladly do whatever you want me to do in terms of SEO. But before we do that, can we just find out first of all, what's wrong? And so an SEO audit, a content audit, things like that is always something I first do whenever I jump into SEO before I do anything. There's a couple of people that I follow now that are fantastic in this realm. One of them is Jonathan Stark. He wrote a book called Hourly Billing is Nuts. And he says, it's no different if you were to go see a brain surgeon and say, hey, doctor, I think I have a headache. I think I have a tumor. Oh, we'll hop on this table right now. We'll operate on you right away. Of course not. We won't do that. So why do we do that as SEOs? We shouldn't be. We should always do a diagnostic first before we do a prescription. And that's kind of my approach in developing an SEO content strategy is we first do that. And that involves several layers, right? There's the audit. There's the analysis, meaning Do you have content already? How well is it doing? Are you serving the user properly? Or like, first of all, who is your user? What exactly are their goals? And then finally, who are your competitors? Who are you trying to outrank, outperform? And then see how you can do a better job. So that is probably key before I do anything.
It absolutely is, isn't it? And you mentioned so many nuggets there that this has become a recurring theme in my conversations with people, in the sense of knowing who your customer is and who your customer persona is. And it's just even like you mentioned, I know you're as far as I'm concerned, you're an expert copywriter, and rightly so. I don't even need to question that. But even in writing copy, you have to know who you're writing for, and creating absolutely. A persona. I mean, even Dan Kennedy taught that. Like, you got to know who is it that you're trying to write for, to reach, and it's the same thing with SEO and knowing about. You touched on how your competition, knowing who your competition is. Are there any specific tools that I mean, I know there's so besides the main tools that everybody mentions, are there any nuggets, tools out there besides SEMrush, besides Ahrefs, besides whichever?
Well, here's how I would answer that question. And I love the fact that you mentioned Dan Kennedy, because Dan Kennedy said something way back that is so much applicable to SEO as much as it was to copy, which is message to market match.
Yes.
And message to market match. Oh my
goodness. Yes.
It's message to market match is you write a sales letter that will actually be the right type of message for the right audience and the right offer delivered at the right time, etc. Well, SEO is a little different. You're trying to match. You try to match your content to what the problems, the goals, the questions that people are asking, and you try to make sure that you match that. So very, very often, for example, I say, when people have a keyword, they look up a keyword and then they find a whole bunch of results. It's not about the results that match. It's about making sure that the intent is right. Search intent is so crucial.
Isn't it?
If I'm asking like a question about, I don't know, I'm using a very simplistic example, but you'll understand.
Sure.
I'm asking, hey, what's the weather out today in Ottawa, Ontario? I don't want this long ass email, letter. I have to read the whole thing until I get.
Or you have to find out the history of how to tell weather.
Well, exactly. So the idea is for me to look at what exactly is the market, who the market is. Actually, you know what? I'll back it up with one more. That's probably going to light up something in your brain, I'm sure, because you're a copywriter too, or at least you understand this business.
Yeah.
David Garfinkel is one of my good friends, and he's also they call him the world's greatest copyright coach, and I believe that's true because he's such a great person to teach. He's a great teacher in copywriting.
Okay.
He taught something in copy that is so applicable to SEO. He said this: there are 3 questions you need to ask. Who's your market? What is their problem? And how do they talk about it?
Yeah.
That's copywriting. Well, guess what? That's SEO.
Yeah.
Who's your market? Find out who's your user.
Yeah.
What is their problem? What are their pain points? Like, what are the questions they're asking? And how are they asking about it? What are the keywords, the ways that they're searching for the question, the answers to their questions? And that's basically the same thing. So when people ask me, hey, Michel, what type of tools do you use, and what kind of keywords do you look for? First of all, keywords is I kind of laugh at that because it's so ironic. Nowadays, keywords are dead. It's not, it's no longer about keywords. Keywords are great tools to help validate what people are looking for, but really Google has become so sophisticated now.
They have.
It used to be what we call a lexical search engine, which is they were looking for words in your content that would match that search. But now it's no longer about that. Google has now become so sophisticated that it looks for topic or related
topical
words or related ideas. And it's now become what we call a semantic search engine. And a semantic search engine is basically topics, related words. Even sometimes you can have a piece of content that doesn't even have the exact same keyword that a person used in a search, but because it serves that topic that people are looking for and it matches the search intent, it'll rank well. So it's not about keywords anymore. So
Yeah.
I tend to look at this. Really,
Okay.
for me, the foundation of SEO truly to me is questions. Really, the kinds of questions people ask. And in order to find out what questions people ask, when I go to Google, you can type in a keyword, but then just do a space either before the keyword or after, or even if you have like a key phrase, you can do it in between. See what all this, like the autocomplete search suggestions. It'll give you a whole bunch of ideas of all the topics that people are looking for, the kinds of questions people are asking. Next, go down and about halfway at the top, well, not really halfway down the page, but halfway through the top, you've got people also asked. Click on that. You got a whole list of all the types of questions that related questions that people ask about a particular topic or an idea.
Yeah.
Go right down to the bottom. Then you got related searches. And then on the right-hand side, you got the knowledge panel, which is related to your knowledge graph, which is all the associated meanings or the associated topics or subtopics about a thing that you're searching for. All of this to say, and then plus you can even click on it and you can drill down further ad nauseum. And there are tools now that actually help you do that at faster, which is kind of better for me. And it's called alsoask.com. It was actually put together by alsoasked.com. And there's answerthepublic.com, obviously. There's another one called searchresponse.io and then answersocrates.com. There's a few more, but those are the ones that I use. Also Asked will basically do the drill down for you. So you type in a keyword or topic and it'll give you a graph. It'll actually connect those graphs basically on saying, if a person asks this question, here are all the other related questions based on that. And then it goes on ad nauseum. And then you can like literally create kind of like a flow chart. There's Answer the Public, which is a different tool, which is basically taking the keyword that you have, and it'll ask questions around that. It'll like ask, why, what, when, where, how, and then it'll give you a list, and then what it'll do is it'll ping the search engines to find out if those are actually questions people ask, and yes, and then it'll present you in a graph. Those are the most fantastic tools, A, for SEO, B, to create content and a content strategy, but C, to give people what they want, to answer the questions. And the more you do, the more you'll rank high, because as a natural byproduct, not by trying to spam Google, not trying to manipulate your way to the top, not trying to buy backlinks, beg for backlinks, because if you do, trust me, you'll get links naturally because you'll earn them, rather than having to try to force yourself up to the top of the rankings. But that's my little secret.
No, I mean, I've heard of Answer the Public, of course, but the Nuggets, also ask.com. I mean, maybe there's other SEOs who know about these resources, but I wasn't aware of also ask.com or searchresponse.io. So that's amazing. Yeah. And building
also ask is based on the people's also ask, whereas Answer the Public is like basically it's kind of like trying different variations of this question. So, but people also ask, I kind of use both, because one kind of gives you different types of questions that people may ask. People also ask gives you the actual questions that Google thinks people want to know about when they look for a topic, which is relevant. It's semantically relevant keywords, key phrases, whatever.
Wow. It looks like Uber suggests Neil Patel bought to Answer the Public.
Last month. Yep.
Wow. I wasn't aware of that. That's good for them. That's pretty awesome. But so when I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake, ask a simple question. In the sense, so we've got all these keywords, and in developing a content strategy, I mean, I know about skyscraper pages, and Brian Dean talked about those, and the people I work for also have built those. In the sense of one time they went out and interviewed, this was for a realtor, I believe, or somebody in that space, and they went and interviewed a whole bunch of interior designers and got their feedback on some question or whatever that people were asking, and then built this long form skyscraper page, and then built an infographic with a quote of the interior designers with a little headshot of them, illustrated, vector graphic. And then, it just attracted so many links. It just, because all the interior designers were talking about this, that, and other thing. So I guess in your experience, we're talking about all these ideas and getting all these questions. Is it better to wrap this whole thing up into a longer skyscraper page when you're building a content strategy?
Nope.
Okay. That's what I wanted to find
out. It
out.
has nothing to do, as the old adage goes, length doesn't matter. That's how you use it, right? It's really true, because if you look at really a piece of content that basically gives you better answers, a better approach. Like, give you an example. If you're looking for, and actually this is not me that made that used this example. It was Mary Haynes, which is a fabulous SEO. She talks about when she was looking up a lawnmower, she was looking to buy a lawnmower, and she would look at different websites. And then it would be a website that had really long, but very comprehensive piece of content that you thought, oh, this is it. But then she had another one that actually had less content, but it actually had step by step. Step one, the lawnmower, how to use your lawnmower, how to preserve it, how to maintain it, or what to look for when you're buying one. What are the things you should be looking at? And it was like 1, 2, 3. And it had little icons with little pictures that you can gravitate. You knew exactly what the content was. It provided far more value. Guess what? That page ranked higher than the other one.
Yeah,
because it has nothing to do with length. Length is it's a misinterpretation, I think, or a misperception. If you have a long piece of content, your chances of actually having more keywords in that piece of content will make you rank for more keywords, and that's absolutely true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll rank higher for certain keywords because you have longer content. If it's not served, if basically, again, do you want to learn the history of the weather of Ottawa, or the recipe? It's kind of foolish. You're right. I think what's important is really it boils down to what users really want. When I say ask, the questions that people ask and answering them, it's not about making sure that all those questions are added. It's probably more important to find out if a person is asking a specific question. And I kind of look, when I do my keyword research in this case, and I call it keyword research because, that's the way that people understand it, but it's mostly about topical research, right?
Yes.
And so I kind of I look at the question that would drive people to the site. So I call it a beacon question. It's like my beacon question. And then I look at that question, and I look at all the related questions that people might ask about that. And I think about it. If I'm the user landing on a site, what's the main question? Am I getting the answer to that question? And I'm getting that answer in the best way possible. But also, what are all the other related questions that I may have in my journey, my search journey, my buyer's journey, whatever the case is? That way, you don't have to listen. You could be comprehensive and answer all the questions, or you could basically answer those questions that are pertinent to that person in their journey. And it's really about that. I'll end with this. You want it to be simple, and I'll make it really simple.
Yeah.
In my 30-year career, I've been doing this since 1992, and I dabbled in SEO at the beginning, and I've been doing it now for a decade now. And I realized that it really comes down to this. SEO used to be about really simple things, and then spammers and scammers and black hat SEOs would take advantage of things. So then it became about more stuff because Google had to try to stave off and try to give people a better experience. And then you got, Panda, Penguin, and Hummingbird and all these things. But because of that, it's going back. It's kind of like going back down to becoming, again, more simple for a couple of major reasons. One is because a lot of the web now is so sophisticated that a lot of the technical stuff is pretty much taken care of. You get a WordPress site, a Wix, a Squarespace, a Shopify site. It's pretty much good. You're good to go. And you've got plugins now. You've got all those things. So it really boils down to, and this is kind of my philosophy, and it boils down to two things. SEO is about the quality of your content and the quality of the user experience, meaning the quality of the experience in consuming that content. That's it. Yeah. Focus on those two things.
Those two things.
Yes, there's a lot of little components involved in those two things, obviously. Yeah. But it really boils down to do those two things. SEO is not about keywords. It's not about this, not that. It's really about quality content and quality user experience. Now, those things tend to be what I think are more important, not ranking factors, but quality signals. There's a reason why Google has two major documents. One is called the Webmaster Guidelines, which takes care of a lot of the user experience stuff. But you've got the quality raters guidelines, which is a document that tells human raters what to look for, which is a great indication of what Google wants, right? So that's quality content. So basically, those two things, Google is basically telling you what they're looking for, and they're far more transparent now with their Google updates, with the algorithms, the changes, and now we've got like the Google podcast search. Off the record. It's called Off the Record. Yeah.
Off the record?
It's a podcast with John Mueller, who's the search advocate. He's like the SEO spokesperson.
I didn't know he had a podcast, though, but I'm so busy doing what I'm doing. It's hard to get.
but I love learning about this stuff because it really tells me that Google now, like Google used to be a black box, but because they had to. People were scamming and spamming, and they really wanted to make sure that if they opened their they pulled the curtains back too much, people would say, hey, now we have an opportunity to exploit a loophole. But nowadays it's Google. So now, especially with the semantic search engine, with the machine learning. So basically you have tools that, for example, there's one type of machine learning called NLP, natural language processing. It's basically trying to understand queries and also content like a human being does. So it doesn't. It's plugging the holes or loopholes that used to be exploited by scammers and spammers. Now it's really about just giving people really good content and just do a better job than your competitors. And then guess what? You're going to rank higher and you're going to do better. And I think that, and there's obviously there's a lot of little things there. Like those two things really boil down to those two things. But there's a lot of little things that we need to take care of. And one of them, and we can talk about this later because this is something that I'm really excited about, is called EAT. So in the quality raters guidelines, over 129 times, I think it's 129. But 129 times the word EAT is mentioned. What does it mean? It means expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Yeah. And what it means is that if you have content that has, let's say, of equal value, with somebody else, what's going to make you rank higher is the EAT. Now, EAT can be backlinks, quality backlinks, but it also could be brand mentions. If my name is mentioned on some website, or my piece is mentioned on some website, or there's pieces out there that help to support me as an author, not my piece itself, but me as an author being a recognized authority, I'm going to beat somebody who might have less EAT. So it really, like I said, it's all about signals rather than factors. It's quality signals rather than ranking factors, and quality signals about the quality content, the quality user experience. SEO really is just that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things I want to unwrap. I mean, coming back to Dan Kennedy, I know you've shared this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've shared the stage with him. I've been a consumer. Yeah, I was a Magnetic Marketing subscriber for over 3 years. Read the Ultimate Sales Letter, read the Ultimate Marketing Plan, read almost all. But anyway, here's what I want to. You talked about having the right message to market, and that is the most amazing thing that I see so many businesses missing. To me, it's mind-boggling. And the application to SEO is just, it's so appropriate. It's incredible.
It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful, and I look at it this way. If you're going to write content or have content written, do you write it from your perspective? Dan Kennedy said it. Actually, there's another, we'll talk about Dan Kennedy. He said something like, you are never your own market.
Yeah.
I love that because when we write copy, we tend to think about us in the way we think our market is going to respond to a copy, and we're not our own market. Guess what? Content, when it comes to SEO, the biggest error that I see when I do an audit at the very beginning, I'll look at the website. I'll say, you didn't write this piece of content for the user. You wrote it for yourself. You wrote it to impress your peers. You wrote to impress rather than to express. You wrote in order to make your site look great, but it's not giving the user the value. And Google sees that. Google understands that. It has, sophisticated machine learning that says, well, I'm not going to rank you for that. And obviously, so.
And bounce rate probably could give an indication that is what's going on, correct? On that.
Right. Well, with the new GA4, and bounce rates are no longer a thing. It's about engagement. Yeah. And I like that because if I have a piece of content And if people land on a piece of content, they read the whole thing, and it solves their issue. It answers their questions. They'll leave. They might come back some other time, but they leave. That's considered a bounce, but it's not a bad bounce. So
no,
for
it's
me,
not.
Exactly. So for me, with a GA4, it really looks at user engagement, and that's why I like to consider dwell times. Like when people go on your site, how long do they stay on the site? Cyrus Shepard is a very famous SEO. He actually did a lot of Whiteboard Fridays for Moz, and he said it best: be the first click, be the long click, and be the last click. Meaning, the first click. Be the first click that people click on when they see your search result. So have a really good copy with your meta description and your title. Be a long click, meaning when they click on it and they visit the site, they stay there. That's dwell time. It's not bounce rate, it's dwell time. And be the last click, meaning they don't go stick back to Google, because that's an indication that search result didn't really serve their needs and they're going to the next one. You want to be the last click. So be first, be long, and be last. It's like a really great way to look at.
Absolutely. SEO, Now I want to explore something here for a minute, and being a fan of Dan and yourself as well, but is that Dan talked about the magnetic marketing system, and I was talking to another direct person who did direct response marketing, but he thought that it could only be applied to envelope letters. I'm like, no, direct response marketing is more than just sending mail, like physical mail. Like direct response marketing is about getting someone to a web page to do something. And so my question to you is developing content around the customer journey from an SEO perspective. Like you've gotten them to your site. So for instance, let's just say someone's searching for kitchen renovation in Ottawa kitchen renovations. And you have a very informational piece that Google's ranking. But what about developing other content to get them into your customer journey? For instance, Dan talked a lot about lead magnets and developing those white papers or lead magnets, like the 7 mistakes to avoid before renovating your kitchen or hiring a renovation contractor. Is that something that people should think about doing, or does it depend on the customer journey? Like, what are your thoughts on the usage of lead magnets in the customer journey?
I will answer your question in a different way.
Sure.
The very famous acronym called AIDA: attention, interest, desire, and action.
Absolutely.
SEO is the same thing, but the only difference is with attention, it's not about getting the person's attention to get a direct response then and there. It's about creating awareness. So it's an A for awareness. Interest.
Yeah,
some people say desire. Some people say consideration. Those are the shopping around. But AIDA is still AIDA. It's still the same fundamental thing. And so I look at a lead magnet. If you got a short funnel and you want to get people to take a quick action, those are great in paid ads and PPC. They're great in direct marketing campaigns, which you can do. There's also tons of social paid search. There's also now videos with TikTok that are fabulously amazing for that. And that's where you can use a lot of those lead magnets. In fact, you could also do a lot of these white paper, like on LinkedIn. When I work with B2B, especially with C-suite or with enterprise level clients, they will have like a white paper, or they'll have like a demo trial of a SaaS software. Well, that's a lead magnet. It's just a different way of it's a different way of doing it. It's not like the traditional lead magnet that we think in direct response marketing, but it's still a lead magnet. Yeah. And in fact, when you look at, if you talk about funnels in the B2B space, you have, you still have like the funnel, but you also have things like, for example, really interesting article that came out today, actually. Yesterday. And it was my gosh, it's escaping me, but it's all about where the funnel used to be. For example, we had the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. But sometimes a journey can be, especially if you're looking at a long sales cycle, like direct marketing is very short. So like people will make a decision then there, or at least within the first 30 days. And if you don't get them, then you can, put them on a remarketing campaign, although that's becoming obsolete now with cookie and privacy laws and all that. But but the long sales cycle, people come in, they'll kind of make some consideration, they'll probably go back. So it's not really a straight linear funnel.
No,
it's probably
anymore,
more like So the lead magnet may be a way to get them into a process, to get them into a conveyor belt, so to speak. But then the real work starts, not the beginning, not the lead magnet. And it's not the sales letter that you would get in a direct marketing process. It may be a phone call. It may be a website. It may be a newsletter where they get like a regular mail. It could be also, a CRM software that will help create a relationship with them. It'll probably be a conversation starter. There's a really cool process in enterprise level sales called ABM, account-based management, or account-based marketing. And they actually, the gentleman who wrote the book, his name is escaping right now, but I think it's Sanjay or something like that. But anyways, he wrote a book called Flip Your Funnel or Flip the Funnel. And it's really about going after a particular client and then expanding from that. So you're rather than going after, try to get leads into a funnel, you're going after somebody to then create and cultivate a relationship with them, and then create content that is custom, that is it's more user value driven. So all this to say is that these are all this. It's just applied a little bit differently. The fundamentals are still there. Direct marketing is not a direct sale in the direct marketing sense. Direct marketing may be in the SEO world. It's more like a micro conversion. It might be steps along the funnel.
Absolutely.
It might be a choice here, choice there, a hand raised there, a phone call here, an email sent there. And it's really still direct marketing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I heard someone say that Google is probably the biggest direct response marketer in the world. I don't know if that's true or not.
That's probably pretty accurate, though.
I think it is when you understand the fundamental concepts of direct response marketing. I mean, Google Ads. Google Ads is the perfect formula for ADA: attention, interest, desire, and action. You're trying to get them to do that with your ads and get them to go to a lens. So, what are then? There's a question I had that besides the lead magnet, then are there any other strategies that or website content that you can share that you've developed that's been effective in driving leads, traffic and leads? Yeah.
Well, remember I told you about, it's about questions, and you can use tools like also ask and answer the public. But there are other search engines out there. And in fact, these are search engines, or I call them search engines. They're really like forums, but people will actually use Google to search these other search engines, Reddit, Quora. Basically, people will type in reviews for travel to Edmonton, and then plus sign Reddit, because they wanted to make sure that, or site Reddit.com, meaning they want to make sure that the answer is in Reddit. And then they'll see specific threads. They feel like, hey, I'm bypassing all the ads and Google is giving me, but I'm going to Reddit to see whether the answer is. But I'm still using Google, and I'm just using Reddit instead. Well, guess what? Those are excellent tools for SEO, because you're basically they're giving you the questions, the real questions, and also the answers that people are giving to those questions. So Quora, Reddit. My gosh, there's tons of these types of sites. Oh, there's tons. I mean, those are the two most popular ones. But and if you just go, there's actually, by the way, there's a Chrome extension I don't use it as often because I use the Reddit and Quora, but there's a plugin, because if you remember back in years ago, there used to be an extra tab in Google search with forums. You can search forums. And now they've taken that out. Well, there's a plugin now that you can put on your Chrome. It's a Chrome extension that will re-add that back. So now if you do a search on Google, there's an extra tab. It adds it. It's called discussion. So you could actually look at all the discussion forums.
Wow.
And that will give you questions and answers that people are asking. And so now you have pretty much all your content ideas and all of your SEO and all of your quote-unquote keywords right there.
And even here's one. I mean, I don't mean to steal the thunder, but here's one. Like, for instance, if people are in the renovation space, doing the voice of the customer and going to review sites like HomeStars or Yelp and reading the reviews
exactly
and gathering that data in generating the content. And do you think, like, for instance, is there like there's so many things I'm dying to ask, like the user intent. You talked about user intent, and what I'd like to figure out and get your thoughts is like all the questions and things. Is there a strategy or process you use for segmenting that data into where people? I know that people come, and I know exactly what article you were talking about in regards to it's not a straight line for a funnel anymore. And I think HubSpot came out with an article about that and how people are in and out, and it's more a circle, and they're coming in and they're going out, and they're coming in and they're going out. But is there any ways to like segment your content to find out the user intent and creating content that is more the informational user intent as opposed, and then figuring out what is the commercial user intent, where people are at to give you an indication of how closer they are to buying? Like, is that, I don't even know if that's the right question, but
no, I understand your question.
Yeah, okay.
There are tools that will help you do keyword research, SEMrush being one of them, that will give you the search intent, but it's based on keyword qualifiers. Like, for example, if I say what is or how is, or those are basically informational types of keywords. Now they don't have to have that, but it's often that. The second is let's say commercial investigation or commercial intent. They're shopping around, they're considering stuff. Well, then it'll be like best blah or top blah, top kitchen renovators Ottawa or whatever.
Yeah, best, top or best.
And then maybe coupon renovations or discounts renovations. They're looking for a coupon or a deal. Then you have the bottom of the funnel where they look, it's transactional. They want to make a transaction. Then they're looking maybe at reviews, or they're looking at completing the sale. So those questions have these qualifiers. They'll say, for example, price of blah, or how fast, shipping, how fast shipping. Well, if they're asking about shipping, they're probably in the market, right? So
they're in the market.
So those will probably give you a great idea of the search intent. Now, that said, the ultimate, to me, it's like these are tools that kind of make these inferences based on these qualifiers. But a lot of times, a lot of these keywords don't have these qualifiers. Sometimes people just type in keywords and you're like, okay, so if I say Ottawa renovations, that might be maybe a navigational intent. There might be a company called Ottawa Renovations, so that may be navigational. It might be commercial. People are looking at shopping around, or it might be somebody informational. They're looking at, what are Ottawa Renovations? So the way to determine the intent very often is to look at Google and the search. And the reason is there's two major reasons.
Okay.
Google will serve up results based on the search intent that it believes the keyword is about. That's number one. But number two is what we fail to understand. There are trillions. I think there was like a video by Google. It's like trillions of searches. I can't remember within what time frame, but there's a very large number of searches being done on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And with that, they do a lot of tests. They do a lot of split tests. They do a lot of the variations, and they serve up different versions, and they kind of test things and change things. And the reason why I say this is important, it's part of my two reasons, is because the result that you see very often after so many tests. So you're pretty sure that if people type in Ottawa Renovations, and if Google thinks that you look at all the results, it's all like informational, you got a pretty good idea that it's an informational search intent, right? So
you're
Google
right.
is right there. It's your best tool to do that. Now, sometimes it's not that clear. You'll have multiple, different types of results. That's when Google is not really sure, and that's where you might want to create either two pieces of content that serves search intent. In fact, you can actually have two pieces of content that are the same keyword, but you're not cannibalizing if they're serving two different search intent. So that's neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to make is that it's the search intent itself can change over time, and it's not. It's Google does these changes based on what people are looking at. Really, it's about what users are doing in their activity. Perfect example.
Yeah.
2 years ago, if you would type in mask, I would get Halloween costumes, costume retailers. I would get, whatever. If you type in mask, or maybe not now, maybe now, but at the height of COVID, you get N95s, you get medical, you get mask rules, you get establishments that require masks, and so on and so on and so forth. Still the same keyword, different search intent. It's shifted. Search intent. And it's important to understand that's what semantic search is. It's not about keywords, it's about meanings behind keywords. And Google, with their machine learning, is becoming so smart at that, determining what a search intent is and even how it changes, so that if you're trying to focus, if you're writing content and you're focused, like really focused on a keyword, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because what happens if the search intent changes? What happens if you're getting a lot of traffic and it's a high, it's a really great keyword, then something changes and then it drops overnight. Then you have to go back and redo everything. It's foolish.
That's crazy.
Don't focus on that. And in fact, this is the ultimate answer to this. Don't focus on what search engines want. Focus on what users want. Yes, the Google will tell you what users want, but because they're giving you clues. But it's really not about them. It's about the user. I call it, it's kind of like a form of disintermediation. Google is trying to remove itself from the equation. It's trying to think like a human being. It's trying to give you the best result as possible.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so when you look at what the user wants, in fact, I kind of hate the word search engine optimization. I kind of probably call it search user optimization, because it's about the search user, true. Right? And so obviously a lot of people will say, well, I have keywords and I'm ranking for those keywords and all that. Guess what? Those keywords are they're so dynamic. It's like volatile. It's like stock market. It's like watching your rankings go up and down. It's like watching prices of your stock go up and down. It's like, Bitcoin. I won't tell you how much money I've lost in Bitcoin, but the point though is that it's not about that. It's not about rankings. People on the SEO used to be about rankings. Yes. And it's kind of still is to a certain degree, but it really is about what I call the 3 Ps: presence, prominence, and performance. Presence meaning how many pages and how many keywords and how many keywords. In fact, if you go to Google Search Console, they don't call it keywords, they call it queries. For how many queries do you come up in the searches? Prominence is the average visibility of all of those, meaning the rankings of all those keywords, but also how often, the number of search impressions that you get and all that. And the third, and then by the way, you've got also like search features like snippets, featured snippets, videos, search, Google Discover, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then the third is performance, which is how many people click on that generate traffic to your site. How well do you position yourself or perform as opposed to a competitor, and how can you probably outperform them? It's not necessarily skyscraper. It could be just offering something different. For years in copywriting, I've been teaching don't duplicate, differentiate, or don't copy, create. Yeah, it's the same thing in SEO, because Google. John Mueller was asked on a webmaster hangout not too long ago, and he said, offer something like, it's not about offering. People say quality content. Well, what is quality content? Well, maybe if you offer something like maybe unique and that serves the client better than just copying and doing like a skyscraper, you'll probably rank a lot better, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
So the 3 Ps. So I was just going to repeat it for the sake of making sure. Yeah. So presence, prominence, and performance. Those are the 3 keys of SEO, I believe, that we try to reach in terms of KPIs, as opposed to rankings. Oh, I got X number of keywords on page 1, or it's foolish.
Goodness, because you could be ranked for keywords that don't even matter.
I'll tell you one of the biggest issues that we run into is people who have been sold a bill of goods based on the old style of SEO. Yes, some of them were kind of like snake oil. Some of them were genuine. I mean, it's just the way SEO used to be. Hey, I want to rank, X number. Yeah, I want to rank for X number of keywords on page 1. Well, the problem with this is if you come to me and say, oh, Michel, I want to rank for these keywords, and I know they're not necessarily the perfect keywords, it's a vanity metric. It just makes them feel good. It's the same thing with content that we talked about earlier, people writing to impress rather than express. Well, if we do that, and then I do a campaign, I create a content strategy, we develop the content, and over 6 months, that one piece for that one keyword, not ranking well. Maybe they even dropped in terms of ranking, and they look at me and they say, you've done a terrible job in SEO. Yeah, but look at the other 2,000 keywords that I make you rank for. And actually, I got you 4 times the traffic that you were going to get with that one keyword that you were, that's the point is, people are stumbling over dollars in order to pick up pennies. And it's exactly the same thing as in SEO. Don't look at the one keyword that you want to go for with your content. Look at serving the user. And guess what? You're going to be ranking maybe for 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 keywords that are semantically related and they're far more viable. You probably heard of the term long tail keyword. Well, that's not about long tail. It's not really about a short or broad term versus a long tail keyword. It's about having the right questions that answer the right, the right problems. And the more you do that, it could be short, it could be long, but it's not about because here's another issue, and I'll finish with this. I could talk about this for hours.
Oh, absolutely.
Search volumes are so misleading. A lot of people will say, I want to rank for X keyword because it has 1,000 searches a month. Well, there's 2 issues with that. One is that a lot of these are done by Google has Keyword Planner, and Google actually has these wide discrepancies, like these wide scales, right? They have like, this keyword is being searched between 10 and 10,000 times. Well, whatever. But there's that, and there's also a lot of the tracking. Like, for example, an impression. If a person loads the first page, and they type in a keyword, they look at the first page, even if they don't scroll out to the bottom, that keyword, all the results that for that one page are counted as one impression. But all the ones on the second page, third page, fourth page are not counted. If you look at Google's guidelines, it says that they have to have the search result in view, or at least in potential view, meaning that if they scroll down, it's going to be there. In the case of mobile phone, you've got infinite scrolling. Well, they say that you have to be like 2 or 3 screens full down before it's considered as an impression because of the infinite scroll. So here's my point. Is you look at a keyword that may not necessarily have a lot of impressions, but that's probably because a lot of people, if they click on the first page and that keyword, maybe if your search result for that keyword is on like page 2 or 3 or 4, it might not count as an impression. So when you see a key, like for example, I have a keyword and it says, I'm coming up for 5,000 impressions, but the search volume says 12,000. That's great, because basically you're getting a lot of good impressions that people actually get you, that people actually reach you. So it's really misleading to say, I want to rank for X keywords. In fact, I got some friends who are in SEO who actually try to rank for keywords, almost 0 search volume, and their traffic shoots through the roof because of all that. And then third and final, all the privacy laws and the cookies and like, for example, iPhone 14.5, where a lot of this stuff is not trackable. Guess what? A lot of the search volumes that you get are either estimates, they're snapshots made in time, they're snapshots based at a time when the search intent may have been different, and they're also maybe an aggregate average that is completely misleading. So I say, look, if you look at a keyword, and it might be like a short term, but it's considered long tail because it has almost like let's say 10 searches. Yeah, but if you write a piece of content around that topic and all the subtopics, you might get 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 times more volume. And it's really misleading to just look at the keyword and the volume. Focus on your user and the topics, and you're going to be much better off.
Wow. I think that's a great place to end it. I mean, I could, there's about 100 other questions I could ask you, and I know we both could talk. So I would say that's I was going to ask you what your big takeaway is, but I think you just gave it,
It's really about thinking about I don't want to spend more time on this, but I want to reiterate something that's really important.
No, go
now
ahead.
that Google is becoming so smart,
Yeah.
it's really not like it used to be before. We used to think of SEO as making sure a keyword is added to a piece page. It's made sure that it's added in the headline and the headers, and make sure it's added in the alt text and all that. It's all BS because, well, it's not BS. It's BS now, or at least BS in trying to just push that. My point is that would be fine if it occurs naturally, but it doesn't need to be forced. But it's more important to think about your user. And if you think about it this way, Google has become so sophisticated that it looks for signals that are like, let's say, quality signals, whether it's the quality of your content or the quality of the user experience. Yeah. Focus on doing that. Improve those things rather than focusing on keywords, and not focusing on improving that for Google's sake. Focus on improving that for your user. Absolutely. The more you do, the more you're going to rank, the more you're going to earn backlinks. People are going to link to you. They're going to share you. Share your posts on content. Social media. They're going to, the links that you're going to get. Plus, very often, a lot of these posts tend to, and I know of a few people who did this, they write a piece of content and it's great. It's a great piece of content. They thought that it wouldn't really blow up, and it just blew up overnight because people loved it. That's the point. And it's coming back down to, it is kind of like the same thing as copywriting. Know who your user is. What is their problem? And a lot of people, actually, there's a site called growandconvert.com, and they call it pain point SEO. I love that term. I call it pain point SEO. I prefer to call it user-first SEO, because it's really about being, rather than trying to make your site Google friendly, focus on making your site user-first. The more you make your site focus on the user, providing value and making it relevant, the more you're going to rank well. And that's going to be my final takeaway. Okay.
And I think what you're saying in that is that you could go and build a site where the old way of like inserting keywords in the headings and all those things, but if it's crappy content that doesn't serve the user experience, it's all for naught. So you should really focus on the user experience instead.
And there's actually today there's a podcast that just came out from with Mary Haynes. Mary Haynes is she teaches SEO, and she's actually lives just maybe about half an hour from me here in Ottawa. But she's a top speaker at she spoke at SMX Advanced just like 2 weeks ago, and at SEO Day from SEO Rush, which was yesterday actually. Anyways, so she's a leading expert on EAT and all that. Yeah. And she came out with the podcast today, and she said something that was kind of really well said. If you have two pieces of content and one is not the best looking, although looks are important, but let's say if you had two pieces of content, one was less appealing, let's say, and that might not be a really good thing from a UX standpoint, although it's not that bad, but it has better value, provides better content. The content serves it better, serves the client better, serves the user better, answers their questions better, gives them the step-by-step guide, whatever. That content will almost always outrank the other one. Even the other one is flashy, it's beautiful, it's slick. Yeah. And that's because the quality of content comes first, then the quality of consuming that content comes second. And I'm not saying that it's not like it's a priority, but it's really about providing value and then providing a good experience in that value. So
yeah, it's I'm doing a quick to see if this guy's doing this in your city. Yeah. There's a guy launching websites all over our country called bestinottawa.com. He's got bestinedmonton.com, bestinwinnipeg.com, and he's a former web developer. And his sites aren't very pretty, but the content's awesome, and he's ranking left, right, and center.
I thought you were going to make a joke about there's actual dentists who named their dental practice, literally incorporated themselves as dentistnearme.com.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah, so crazy. That people would look up dentist near me and they would come up.
It's
foolish. Again, they're trying to manipulate search engines.
Yeah, he's building great content around the best services and providers in each geographical area.
Great. Absolutely.
And
that's fantastic.
The content that he puts out. So I was just trying to say your point in that there's other sites that are nicer, but his content is really, really good.
Yeah. Dan Kennedy, back to Dan Kennedy, when he said, that oftentimes it's, he calls it copy cosmetics. And he meant that in the sense of the cosmetics that are not necessarily the best. It's like the dollar bill stuck to the top, or the coffee stain on the Now, I'm not saying that you need to make a site not look slick. That's not the point here.
Okay.
It's that if all things being equal, the one that provides more value will outrank the other one. But there is, and Mueller from Google did say this, that a delightful experience in UX is just as important as it might be. Content might be first, but it's not too far from user experience. You don't want to do one at the expense of the other. You want to do both. So he said that Google also pays attention to the appealing nature of a website. The great SEO person who actually used to work for Google, his name is Pedro Diaz. And Pedro Diaz does Pedro Diaz. And he actually wrote a nice piece on, I think it was on Search Engine Journal, or if not Search Engine Land, about the user experience honeycomb, UX honeycomb. And the UX honeycomb is basically 7 pieces of what's important for, or what's going to create the best user experience. He says, yes, it has to be, you have to be findable, you have to be usable, you have to be credible, you have to be helpful, you have to be valuable. Anyways, there's a lot. I'm my memory is escaping me right now, but the point is this: the content in itself is a user experience as much as user experience is content. You understand?
Oh, I totally understand.
Because if I go to a theater, a great movie is going to make it even greater if the movie theater has great service, has these kind of couches with a big thing of popcorn, because I'm enjoying the experience, right?
Absolutely.
So, and it's the same thing with SEO in the sense that, and Google, like I said, Google themselves said it's not and I want to make sure that this is clear. They didn't say that they're going after better looking sites. They just want to make sure that you provide a more pleasant and more appealing experience. And in fact, in the UX honeycomb from Pedro Diaz, I think one of them is called desirable. So do people actually, and desire means, is it appealing? Is it appealing, but not only just to the eye, but is it easy to navigate? Is when you find the content, you're not getting a whole bunch of pop-ups. It's like smooth sailing down, like down a grease chute, as they say in direct marketing. Well, it's the same thing in SEO. And the more you do that, the more you're going to rank well.
Wow. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure for me. Highly enjoyed talking to you. I know we could talk even more, but I want to respect your time. And
thank you.
You're welcome to come back anytime at all. And how can listeners connect with you online if they want to?
Just Google my name.
Okay, You're Michel Fortin. It's MichelFortin.com. You can go there, or you can search Michel Fortin, but it's Michel, just so everybody knows that's his real name. His nickname
I'm
is,
laughing
Michael.
because I'm laughing because my name, Michael, my name is Michel, but a lot of people forget to, they'll put it in the A and all that. But if you look at me, the socials, look for at Michel Fortin or at Michel Fortin. On LinkedIn, on Twitter. And I also have my own site, michelfortin.com. And also the agency that I work at is SEOplus.com.
SEOplus.com. Right on. Hey, thanks very much. It's been a blast.
Oh, it's been a blast for me too. Thank you so much.
No problem. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.